Hello. It's me again. I thought I would give you a little rundown of what it was like for me as an American receiving health care here in England, where I now live. My mother is English, as I've mentioned previously. So I'm going to tell you one experience I had. And don't hold me to that. I may wax poetic and tell you a couple more. I don't know. But I remember one time I had pneumonia and I have asthma from childhood. And I couldn't breathe. And it was very scary. And so I was taken to the hospital and we opted for a taxi rather than an ambulance because an ambulance is very expensive over there. And there's usually a flat rate. A couple of times I saw the bill, it was around $2,000. I'm not saying that was for everybody the same cost, but that's how much I saw on my bill. So we got the taxi. I barely remember the ride there. We arrived in the hospital and I was making the universal sign that I couldn't breathe, which, you look at those signs and you think, I'm never going to do that. You do, definitely. I was clawing at my throat basically because I couldn't breathe. I passed out and then I woke up in an emergency room and I was booked into the hospital and I was put in the intensive care unit where I was to stay for about 2 weeks. I did not have insurance, and that was really frightening to me. As an American, when I was living in America, I would put off any health problem as long as I possibly could. Because I knew how expensive it was going to be. It's always like that. Unless you can go to a free clinic, and free clinics are, most of the time they're fully booked and they don't have room for anybody else, which was what I experienced. So I wake up and I'm in the ICU and I'm getting a sponge bath and other things done and I'm on a ventilator and, it's very unnerving when you wake up like that after 3 days. So, nurses do their rounds and one of them was handing out these little cellophane wrapped socks. They're long tube socks and they have these little plastic, like rubber looking imprints on the other side. Well, she would always skip my bed. I never understood why. So one day I just asked her out of curiosity, and she said, well, you don't have insurance, and I could only give you the one. And that really made me feel less than, which might be the way to put it, I don't know. But so there was that, and some of the nurses admitted to me that they were only giving me one dose out of the Advair that I was prescribed while I was in the hospital. It was a purple disc at the time, and I was given 1 to 2 puffs or inhalations. Anyway, it was like a powder. And I would do that, and they would tell me, well, we're going to stash this for you because you don't have insurance. It's about $400 for each one of these. And with no prescription coverage, of course, they knew I couldn't afford it. But they also knew and told me that without it, I would end up right back in the emergency room with my lung problems. Excuse me there. So they were doing that for me while I was in the hospital. And it came time for me to leave. And I was put in a wheelchair and I was wheeled out. They brought me to, I guess you would call her the cashier. And while I was there, she went over the bill with me, and it was sizable. And she said, because you have no insurance, this is all out of pocket. And she also looked me straight in the eye and said, do not come back here unless you have insurance next time. I couldn't believe it. It was insulting, honestly, because I didn't purposefully go out and get pneumonia. I didn't ask to be born with asthma, but all these things happened. And then shortly after that, I had to go to the pharmacy, and the hospital had told me that they had covered the cost of 2 to 3 of my prescriptions. However, when I had arrived at the pharmacy, they were the cheapest prescriptions, and they were the ones for the steroids to help me to help my lungs open. And the rest of them I needed. Couldn't afford. And the pharmacy very calmly told me the price. It was about $1,700 at the chemist or the pharmacy, however you want to, address them. And I was petrified because I didn't have the money for it. And I said, I'm sorry, I don't have the money for that. And the pharmacist just looked at me and tore them up right in front of me, the prescriptions, and then threw them in the trash. And I can't say that was personal, because obviously they have a number of people, I'm sure, that they have in my similar situation. But wow, it was very I couldn't do that job. Let me just say that. I would be in trouble because I would be giving people their medicine. And to add further insult to injury, last time I checked, the American government had passed legislation that basically what it says is unpaid medical bills will now affect your credit score. So I have 6 figures worth of medical bills I cannot pay. I will never be able to pay back. And I cannot get a cell phone, like a contract. I can't get a credit card. I can't get a loan of any kind. There's a lot of things that credit score affects. And through no fault of my own, because I certainly didn't, ask to have asthma or any of the other medical problems I have. I didn't sign up for it anywhere. It wasn't, something I purchased and then it was my fault. I was born with these problems. So there would be people that were calling my home, bill collectors, wanting their money. And then, of course, once they had not been satisfied, subsequently, I would have people from collection agencies call. And then once they weren't satisfied, it would go to, I guess, third party involvement. But they were even more aggressive. And, it was a nightmare. It really was. It followed you everywhere. And I'm talking 6 figures medical bills. Let's just say more than $500,000. And I don't know how I'm ever going to pay that back. And they don't care. Usually when you explain this to them, you express it clearly. The question they'll ask usually right after is, well, do you have a major credit card you'd like to put it on? I wish I was joking, but I'm not. Well, in 2011, I moved to England. It was initially a visit, and then I ended up living here. I don't have a regret. I like it here. It's beautiful. The first time I went to the hospital here, I guess I was just, I was reacting how I how I was expecting things to be. I was hoping for something different, but I didn't know. And so, upon arriving in the emergency room, or the A&E, as it's called here, you wouldn't even really think you were in an emergency room. And the reason I say that is this. The people that were in the emergency room were very calm. They didn't appear to be under a lot of duress. I didn't see any blood anywhere. And I don't know. I've been to the A&E a few times now, and the same is still true. And of course there are serious accidents that happen that I miss. I know that. But the general environment in the A&E is different from an American emergency room. When I would go to the emergency room in America, it was much louder, but it was because a lot of the patients that were there were crying, screaming. It's hard to be there. I saw people bleeding, serious bleeding, and you would see people coming in for things that you wondered why they hadn't come in sooner, but being in an American hospital and being an American, you knew the answer already. It was because they didn't have the money. And so they had put it off and put it off. And I knew quite a few friends of mine who put off pretty serious situations because they couldn't afford the medical care, and they couldn't afford the insurance even, And so I was in the emergency room, the A&E. It was very calm, very quiet. And I was called to the back. I spoke to a nurse first. Regular, inputting of information into one of the little computers. You get your little hospital tag. It was all, regular. And then I explained what was troubling me, and they listened, they took down notes, and they went away, and in came a doctor. Pretty standard, And I got to speak to a doctor after, about 45 minutes. And they were very helpful. They listened to me, and I was sent on my way. And I was given, boxes of medications in a bag, and I was told I could go home. And I looked at my partner with eyes I'm sure as big as saucers, and I'm like, what do you mean we can just go home? And she, Gaia looked at me and she said, well, yeah, of course, you just go home. I'm like, really? Yeah, you just go home. Well, where do I pay? And the nurse looked at me and kind of chuckled a little bit. And Gaia looked at me and, she's like, I know. And then, yeah, so it was an interesting visit. And the hospital was perfectly clean. Everybody was nice. I'm sure there are some people that are having a bad day, just like anywhere. But, I don't want you to think I'm painting a portrait of perfection. I mean, I'm sure just like any hospital, there are issues and, there are bad experiences. But the issue here is the cost. And I was treated like a person. I wasn't treated like a bank account, like a credit card. And that's how I was treated when I lived in America. The medical system is awful. Let's be honest. It's atrocious over there. I'm a veteran. I served in the Air Force. And yet there's, you're treated terribly. I really think that there are things that could be done to change and improve the system. But it does not seem like many people want to talk about it. When I lived in America, all I heard was one word: socialism. And if it is socialism to remove terror from people's hearts and minds when it comes to their health, it's not wrong. You know, to provide a safety net for people to be able to live their life and without having to be afraid all the time of something going wrong. And then when it does go wrong, what are we going to do? You know, and how are we going to pay our bills? That's not an option. There should be a safety net. And one of the things that they have here in England is a safety net. It just makes sense. And there are naysayers out there that will argue against it and will say that it's wrong and that you should pay for your own problems and, pull up by your own bootstraps. I've heard it all. But the reality is we're all hit with medical problems. And they're not all our own fault or our own doing. Universal healthcare makes sense. It's the only thing that makes sense, and it helps. I did an estimation of my prescription medications. Out of curiosity, I looked for generics everywhere I could. And the average I came up with, and I'm just going to give an average number, not specifics, it averaged out to an approximate cost of about $900 a month for my prescriptions alone. Here, I have no prescription cost at all. I don't pay for my prescriptions because I have several health issues that are going to require lifetime care. And obviously it's not something that I caused. And so because of that, when I need my prescriptions, they don't cost me anything. And also the the pharmacy or the chemist, they deliver them to me because I have certain mobility issues. And right now we're in a lockdown, so it helps. But those are some of the differences that I've noticed personally between America and here. And I'm still in contact with many friends and family in America, and when I tell them the difference, many of them, they say, I wish it could be like that here. And I agree. It should be like that everywhere. Nobody should be terrified to go to the doctor. You know? Nobody. So, this was me sharing my experiences with the NHS and with American medical professionals, hospitals and free clinics and things like that. And of course, I may do another one. But I've had a lot of run-ins with hospitals and a lot of need to go to one. So maybe I'm more of an expert than your average person. I don't know. But anyway, I hope you found this entertaining, interesting, informative. And if you have any questions that are relevant, please, by all means, ask me. And I will do my best to get an answer to you as soon as possible. Thank you. Oh, and I hope you like my new ears. They make me very happy. Because I can move them around and I can do different moods. So anyway, I hope you like them.